Good evening. My name is Bianca Gamble, and I'm President of League of Women Voters, Vigo County. Our first question this evening is abatements and other incentives have been offered to businesses in order to encourage development, such as the TIF district on 46 and the downtown area. What is your position on these incentives? Specifically, what requests would you approve and which would you decline, and why?
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. In the Vigo County government is which I have my background and basis, but the same thing applies to the city. An abatement is issued to a company or an entity, a business coming in, and it has specific guidelines. The number of employees that you are going to have, the amount of money spent in building, property tax values accordingly, the use of local labor, the use of local materials, and all in order to attract a business. I've been to Paducah, Kentucky to visit theirs. I've seen ours. We cannot attract without giving an incentive package. We have done this in Vigo County government, and we've failed no times. They have all met the requirements, and we have filled the industrial park with probably 15% left, and we need to do this in order to be competitive.
Thank you.
Well, Bianca, I think, tax abatements, I think, as Kirk has indicated, that should be strictly limited to the acquisition of new jobs, more employment. Not that, pay market jobs and do things that are ornamental, but it's got to be an employee related incentive to grant that abatement. The TIF districts, I support that there was an indication down at the end of the table that somehow the city's given money to hotel developers and all that sort of thing. That's just absolutely not true. The TIF district pledges the increase in property tax revenues that are derived from those projects to the retirement of the debt. The debt belongs to the developer. The city is in no way obligated for that debt. I think the two projects in downtown Terre Haute are long past due. They're wonderful. I'm a historic buff, but the Terre Haute house, my thought always was, if there was a way to remodel that facility and make money, the Hollands would have done it a long time ago, and they didn't. So I think, when the lady says stop, you stop.
Thank you.
The question was kind of threefold. Do I support TIFs? It depends where they are and what their function is. I recently voted against the Walmart TIF on 46, but I supported the TIF downtown. One main reason for supporting the TIF downtown was because it did not put the taxpayers on the hook. The developer would have to pay that if it went belly up. So depending on what the project is, and I always do my homework before I cast a vote. I obviously based upon that. Tax abatements should be given as incentives, but when the State Department of Commerce can't compete with Ohio or Kentucky, there's very little the local communities can do but for tax abatements to try to make business grow locally. That's about the only thing we can do. I just would encourage, and I always have, that local labor or local materials are used so that if we're going to give people a tax break, that we try to employ local folks.
Tax abatements and tax districts were originated for a very good reason. And we need to look at those reasons when it comes to our areas of concern. In this particular case, Terre Haute needs to consider its impact on the entire community, and that includes all of the taxpayers. We could debate the TIFs and the districts of the TIFs all evening long. It's going to take a whole lot longer than 60 seconds. But if it does what it's supposed to do, if it does bring jobs to our community, if it does bring to us local business, and it does not particularly help one particular individual or entity, then yes, we need to look at those as possibilities and options. They have been around for a long time, and they have been very successful and useful to a number of communities. We just need to look at those as what is going to be best for us.
tax increment finance districts are a very common tool used throughout the state of Indiana and throughout other states too, to get good paying jobs to come to town. We have, I think we're up to five TIF districts in the city. The first one was downtown. The most recent one is the Margaret Avenue TIF district. Do I support TIF districts? Yes, I do. I've seen the downtown TIF district make a number of things possible. 2 parking garages now, and the projects that we've got at 7th and Wabash and 8th and Wabash. Tax abatement is something that is another game that everyone is playing, and we have to pay to play. It's hard philosophically to say, no, I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to support this, when you know that if you don't do it, you will be putting your community at a disadvantage. So I have voted yes on all the tax abatements that are coming before us.
Yeah, I'm pretty much against all tax abatements and TIFs. What a TIF does pretty much takes money. I'm trying to explain this. Takes tax dollars, more tax dollars from the people. And if we just had a lower tax base for everyone, then businesses, who are we to say that if somebody not going to go into a business, who are we to be the ones that say, hey, here's $1 million out of a $13 million project, like they couldn't have got the other $1 million financed? It just takes more money away from the taxpayers. If we had a level playing field for everyone, it would be a lot better.
I would have to agree with Mr. Anderson. I would be against the TIF districts and tax abatement simply because of the fact that it's progress for a few individuals but being financed by everyone, and that's not the purpose of tax dollars. It's great to see new businesses come in. I'm all for that, but we need to let that happen through having smaller taxes for the individual and allow them to spend their money, and that will create new jobs. Thank you.
My wife bought me a brick from the Terre Haute house, and during one of my Chamber of Commerce speeches, I kissed it. If you do not utilize the full toolkit available to all city governments, all local governments in the state of Indiana to attract business, then you will not get the business. In a perfect world, you wouldn't need them. But the world is not perfect. And in this world, you need the full toolkit. So in my mind, if we hadn't had the tools, if the city hadn't used them, and I've had conversations with some of the key players downtown, the Terre Haute house would still be there. And we'd still be waiting for some fanciful person ferry to come down and restore it.
TIF districts are, at best, I think, a necessary evil. Would I vote for them? Probably not. We have a TIF district out. When the Walmart TIF district went in, we were told that it's going to create 13,709 jobs. If that's the case, then where are all the jobs out of the big TIF district that surrounds the airport? There's a big TIF district out there. There are no jobs out there. We have another TIF district on the north side. And it's not really generating any jobs yet that I know of. They're building out there, but there are still no jobs. What the TIF district does is it keeps the money within the neighborhood. I think all of us would like to be able to see our own personal property tax dollars stay within our own neighborhoods. But the costs are passed on, no matter how small.
I think all abatements in TIF districts should be looked at individually, then I can make an educated vote on something like that. The abatement that the county gave 5 years was honestly a good choice. They've already jobs at $15 and up. But TIF districts that are given to multi-billion-dollar companies are not necessarily something we should look at as an alternative to a job solution. Those companies are going to come to Terre Haute, whether it's Target, Walmart, Home Depot. They're going to come here because of revenue they're going to generate on their own. They don't have to have a TIF district to be brought into our area. You know, abatements are looked at as a good way to create jobs because of Terre Haute leading about over 6% unemployment rate, which is higher than the national state average. And we do have to do something to bring jobs to this area. And then you look at our poverty level, and we do have to have some balance between those. We just like to look at them individually.
Well, do any of us like abatements or economic incentive packages of any nature? Not necessarily. They don't sit well with any of us. Are any of us foolish enough not to use them and put our community at such a disadvantage against any other community we compete with? No, we're not that foolish. We realize it's a necessary evil. We do scrutinize abatements in TIF districts. We don't hand them out. There have been some we've passed on, retail abatements, etc. One thing I'd like to, the main thing I'd like to stress is the Eastside TIF district was never passed to bring Walmart here. If you know me, you know I'd never support anything that would bring Walmart to my community. It was passed such that the city of Terre Haute could get engaged and make the Eastside develop the Eastside in a responsible fashion so that the traffic Walmart created, we could build the infrastructure for it. That was why that TIF was passed. It never helped Walmart one bit. They were coming whether we had that TIF or not. Second, the incentive use downtown is like the chicken or the egg. This developer said he's not bringing his extended stay suites without this $1 million. Without that $1 million, you don't have the TIF tax dollars to pay his incentive in the first place. So you bring the hotel in and let it pay its own, use its own tax dollars to pay down its bond indebtedness, or do you say no thanks, we'll keep the empty building?